You brought up an interesting point. I think it's a slightly different dynamic than we had in the US last year, where yes, young people turned out for Trump, but so did older people. And one of the things I just want to ask you quickly about, Jason, is a story that hit the news a week ago. And this is the model citizen, Liberal Party campaign volunteer in London, which is, in kind of southwestern Ontario. It's a urban area, but surrounded by country land. And this is what he gave. This image went viral. It hit Zero Hedge. It hit Twitter all over the place. Even the mainstream media now is talking about it. And it's become an emblem, I think, for how a lot of young people are feeling is that the baby boomers in Canada might be voting Liberal and basically kind of doing one last salute on the way into the grave, where they got to enjoy all of the benefits and the fruit of all of these social programs, and now they're leaving the younger generation with the bill. And I wanted to get your thought on that there.
Well, my thought was, so first of all, this guy was in Brantford, Ontario at the time, and I've been joking around that there's something in the water of Brantford, Ontario that causes you to do stuff like this, apparently. He yeah, it's emblematic of kind of what I'm seeing too, which is there's been two groups in Canada. There's been a group that has really been pain under that has undergone a huge amount of pain the last 10 years with the socialist policies of this Trudeau government. And then there's another group that really hasn't experienced all that much pain. And it's people like this fella who was an executive, I believe an executive or at least fairly high up in a company in St. Thomas. He's had a very good career from all the sounds of it. He's done well
Uh,
for himself.
in a train museum, I think he was an executive for the train museum.
Yeah. And he's done well. Okay, so good for him. He's done well. I don't want to be resentful and do the tall poppy thing with him. But really the last few years, yeah, he's been really insulated from the pain of carbon taxes, the attack on free speech that has happened in this country, the tyranny that really Trudeau was putting on everyone with some of his heavy-handed activities during COVID. Like he really didn't have to face any of that. Young people in particular in this country have been facing a lot of pain. Like,
Well, and I want to jump in on that if it's okay, because I've said it, and I know I've said something to you about this, but I want to first of all preface my statement by saying I am not directing this at the minority of baby boomers who, were thinking ahead and knew this day was coming. I mean, really, the 2020s in Canada is the day that many conservative, small C conservative Canadians were predicting was eventually going to happen, where the cupboard was going to be bare, the government was going to go full tyranny to try to kind of, like all governments do when they run out of money, they basically try to lock everyone down and, put shackles and controls on the whole society. But here's the thing is that like I'm going to quote from someone I'm sure you'll appreciate, Thomas Massey, who represents Kentucky's first district in the U.S. Congress. He was asked last year on Tim Pool's program, if he blames the Democrats for all the stuff they're doing, and he said, no, I don't. I blame Democratic voters. Right. I blame the people who send these people to Washington. And I think that when I look at this picture here and look what's been happening, I'm happy in a sense that it's come up because, it puts the reality in our faces that it's people who aren't the members of parliament. It's not Justin Trudeau's cabinet. It's not Justin Trudeau who ruined Canada. It's the people who consistently sent them there. And I mean, the baby boomers are a textbook example of that because they are not just responsible for Justin Trudeau and his three elections. They're not responsible for, if the polls are accurate, putting Mark Carney in there and giving the Liberals the same people except the leader, all the same MPs, all the same ministers, a fourth term in power after everything they've done. But they put Pierre Trudeau in for four terms between the late 1960s and the early 80s. And you know, he's another ideological communist, right? Has started Canada on this road to destruction. They voted themselves in perk after perk after perk, and I think that's why this image went viral is because of this. But like I said, I don't want to direct this to the minority of baby boomers who were honest and had integrity through these decades. But the baby boomers as a generation basically were responsible for phrases like don't trust anyone over 30 when they were young, because all of the people older than them were idiots at that time, right? And had to be done away with. They had to reinvent society. And then when they got to their peak earning season, right, in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, they basically outsourced the raising of their kids. They outsourced the raising or the care of their parents, right, because they were busy being successful, right, and they had the cheap housing and the good jobs and everything else. But they couldn't be bothered to maintain that for the future generation. They certainly weren't going to honor their parents in the
Exactly.
process. And then COVID hit, and I want to wrap this up here with this, like as far as what I'm saying here is COVID hit, and all of a sudden it's like, you all have to put your lives on hold. My grandkids can't develop, they can't have any friends, they can't do any of the normal childhood things and it would have continued. It wouldn't have ended if there wasn't finally a pushback from the younger generations. But they were quite willing as a generation to say, and I know some baby boomers who are still, haranguing people for going out and not wearing masks and doing all the vaccines and everything else, right? They were quite ready to completely shut down civilization indefinitely just so that they could live another day at everyone else's expense, right? And I think that this picture here of this campaign worker for the Liberals perfectly captures, this generation, as a whole. Again, I know it's not everyone, and I want to be clear about that because I know there's a lot of baby boomers hurting when this stuff gets said. But as a generation, it's going to be marked in history as a very selfish, narcissistic, destructive generation. I want to
Agree.
get your thoughts on that.
What I was thinking about was there's a Greek saying, I think it's a Greek saying at least, that says, society grows when old men plant trees that they'll never sit under the shade of.
Chinese, but yes, yeah, you're right about the same.
And this picture is emblematic of the problem with that boomer generation, which is the boomer generation said, uh, screw, they basically said, you only live once, and the future, who cares about the future? What was that Kind's response? Kind said, over the long term, we're dead. So who cares? That's this generation right here. They didn't plant trees. Uh, Everything was about them. And that's kind of what this picture really kind of shows us is it's if you could sum up the baby boomer generation as a proverb, they'd say it would be that Frank Sinatra line, I did it my way.
Yeah,
That's how
yeah.
that would be the baby boomer motto. I did it my way. It's about me. And that's exactly what this picture kind of describes.
And I don't know if you know this, just a quick aside, and I want to ask you one last thing before we wrap up here, Jason. But a quick aside, you know how often and how popular that Frank Sinatra "I Did It My Way" song is at funerals these days?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's horrendous. Yeah, it's it's the most completely selfish um like song in the world when you think about it, really. I did it my way. That's great. Yeah, it's excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's not I did it for somebody else. I sacrificed myself so that other people could have a better life. It's I did it my way.